Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Layla. Welcome. Shout out to Gemma. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Matt Christie. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Thank you for asking. Shout out to Mary. My day's going well. How about you? Good. I'm glad to hear. Thank you for joining. Yes. Shout out to Summer. Yes. Shout out to Mariah. You're welcome, Matt Christie. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Elia. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Thank you for asking. You're welcome, Rose. Shout out to, is it Brady? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Leave a like if you're enjoying the shout outs. Write your name in the chat so I can shout you out. Thank you for being here. I'm doing well, Brady. How are you doing? Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Braylon and Jen. Braylon. Shout out to Jen. Shout out to Avi. Avi. Shout out to, is it Marquise? Marquise. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Musfira. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kenji. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to James. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Layla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Mirab. Shout out to Jason. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Luana. Shout out to Jace. Shout out to Leonardo. Shout out to Leonardo. Shout out to Cadence. Shout out to Dominique. Shout out to, is it Shugam? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Annabelle. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Nathan. Shout out to Ethan. No, not. That says Elena. Sorry. I misread your name. I'm so sorry. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Steve. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to Thomas. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Shout out to Giannia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Juliana. Shout out to Cadence. Shout out to Nevea. Shout out to Talon. Shout out to Marissa. Shout out to Shirley. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maxine. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to Letitia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Tristan. Shout out to Jarvis. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Rumi. Shout out to Cadence. Shout out to Salwa. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Coco. Shout out to Valeria. Shout out to Alyssa. Shout out to Leslie. Shout out to Eldon. Shout out to Mira. Shout out to Sophie. Shout out to Nani. Shout out to America. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Krish. Shout out to Bryn. Shout out to Jay. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jaspreet. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Mira. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Arohi. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Alondra. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Regina. Shout out to Emma. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Oak. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Farron. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Pepper. Shout out to Angeli. Shout out to David. Shout out to Mari. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Taylor. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Scarlett. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Candace. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Parmin. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Virginia. Shout out to Tamari. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support. Wait, I messed up the A. Let me redo that. Shout out to Tamari. There we go, much better. Shout out to Zachary. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jubensley. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to A Packer. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Rylan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Regina. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Carmen. Shout out to Gannon. Hi Raylan. Thank you for joining. Shout out to Gally. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Izzy. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Kyrie. Shout out to Emily. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jennifer. Shout out to Erica. Shout out to these people. Thank you for being here. Subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. I also post other content that I hope you can check out as well. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you for your patience. If I haven't gotten to your name, please try to write it again. Shout out to James. Shout out to Hartley. Shout out to Macy or Mace. Shout out to Julian. Shout out to Virginia. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Eden. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kyrie. Shout out to Dixie. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Rylan, or Raylan, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sarai. Shout out to Fletcher. Shout out to Phoenix. Shout out to Adeline. Shout out to Killian. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Avalie. Shout out to Adriana. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Cassidy. Shout out to Kipper. Shout out to Sam. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Aubrey. Shout out to Momina. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Dari Yellis. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kyrie, I got you. Shout out to Elena, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sophia, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Marcelo. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Shout out to Ronan. Shout out to Haven. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Daryl. Or Daryl. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Courtney. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Lori. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jennifer. Thank you for 100 likes. Shout out to Mariana. Whoopsie. Shout out to Sierra. Shout out to Louie or Louie. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Indigo. Shout out to Phoenix. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sanvi. Shout out to Rujith. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Yair. Shout out to Summer. Oh my gosh, I messed up. Let me write that again. I put N and M. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Callie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jenny. Shout out to Rice. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Vivian. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Dishka. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Erica. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Kudus. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ciara or Kiara. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Presley. Shout out to Anna. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lizzie. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to, is it Salwa? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Anna, I got you. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Nastasia. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Justice. Shout out to Millie. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Lance. Shout out to Berlin. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Jenny. Shout out to Thea. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Coco. Shout out to Harvey. Shout out to Vad. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Legend. Shout out to Keegan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Wesley. Shout out to Diana. Shout out to Safa. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Rosa. Shout out to Jamie. Shout out to Kyrie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Anne. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Cameron. Shout out to Raphael. Shout out to Regina. Shout out to Addie Mae. Shout out to Annalise. Shout out to Mallory. Shout out to Sayuri. Shout out to Esther. Shout out to Zora. Shout out to Harley. Shout out to Lynn. Shout out to Elisa. Shout out to Kit Kat. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Ailana. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Amara. Shout out to Kimoya. Shout out to Deborah. Shout out to John. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Anthony. Shout out to Willa. Shout out to Leela. Shout out to these people. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Willa, so it's Illa. Thank you for teaching me how to pronounce your name. On to the next page. Leave a like if you enjoy the live stream. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Tulip. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Erica. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Virginia. Shout out to Riley. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Calvin. Shout out to Anise. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Tanya. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. We're halfway there. Shout out to Elliot. Shout out to Skyly. Shout out to Cleo. Shout out to Tanvi. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Jaina. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Anvi. Shout out to Haven. Shout out to Anthony. Shout out to Shanad. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Alyssa. Shout out to Jalen. Thank you for subscribing. Whoops, I messed up. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to Brielle. Shout out to Dempsey. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Callie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tatiana. I'm so sorry if I haven't reached you yet. I'm trying to write fast. Shout out to Kingston. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Sagar. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Addison. Shout out to Alanis. Shout out to Natasha. Shout out to Mariana. Shout out to Kai. Shout out to Jasmine. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to, excuse me, Danelli. Shout out to Donnie. Shout out to Bella. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. Shout out to Raustia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Acadia. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ashton. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to Moncado. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Saima. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Gemma. Shout out to Victoria. Shout out to Ailani. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Jackson. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Jersey. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Shout out to Alexis. Shout out to Boa. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mokshita. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ramaya or Ramia. Oops, I messed up. Shout out to Zia. Shout out to Trevor. Shout out to Jake. Shout out to Jows or Joe. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Charlie. Shout out to Nev. Shout out to Winnie. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Mira. Shout out to Yuri. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Tanya. Shout out to Mia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Trenton. Shout out to Snickers. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Yasmina. Shout out to Jason. Shout out to Netwan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Maya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rachel. Shout out to Haven. Shout out to Costina. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Gabriel. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Shout out to Sophia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Chrissy. Shout out to Paula. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Alessandra. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Io. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Zendaya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Laquan. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bernard. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Emberlyn. Shout out to Cara. Shout out to Kaisley. Shout out to Valeria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rosie. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Abby. Shout out to Xavier. Shout out to Ivana. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Maricelta. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out to Kyla. Shout out to these people. Thank you for being here. Leave a like if you're enjoying the shout outs. Thank you for 200 likes. On to the next page. Subscribe if you want to support my channel. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out as well. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Spencer. Shout out to Alaya. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Gael. Shout out to Sherlyn. Shout out to Kyla. Shout out to Arnold. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to April. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Connor. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Jaden. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Yashika. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to McKenna. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Alaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Maricelta. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Shu Ling. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Ali or Ollie. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lil G. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mira. Shout out to Chili. Shout out to Christopher. Shout out to Zia or Zaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Majo. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to London. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Shout out to Hadassah. Shout out to Mano. Shout out to Mary Heloisa. Shout out to Janaya. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Regina. Shout out to Costina. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Jupiter. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Joanna. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Gemma. Shout out to Camille. Shout out to Hallie. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Veda. Whoops. Shout out to Phoebe. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Lula. Shout out to Jada. Shout out to Clea or Clea. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Nezuko. Shout out to Aislinn. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Paulina. Shout out to Cosma. Shout out to Kaideen or Kaideen. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Eliana. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content and my shout outs. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Hazel. Shout out to Damaris. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Eli or Ellie. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kamaya. Shout out to Editha. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lucas. Shout out to Sasha. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Blake. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Martina. Leave a like if you're enjoying the shout outs. Let's try to get to 300 likes. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Zion or Zion. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Yuli. Shout out to Cherise. Shout out to Samantha. Shout out to Megan. Shout out to Leandro. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Brienne. Shout out to Riona or Riona. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Brandon. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Garen. Shout out to Bianca. Shout out to Brayden. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Seema, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Beverly. Shout out to Brittany. Shout out to Gunner. Shout out to Gracie. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Kenny. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Corelli. Shout out to Afik. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Darielle. Shout out to Catherine. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Hafira. Shout out to Esha. Shout out to Jill. Shout out to Olivia. Happy birthday. Shout out to Samari. Shout out to Reem. Shout out to Ayat. Or Ayat. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Sefso. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Math. Shout out to Dahlia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Josh. Shout out to these people. I put Math right here. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Also subscribe if you want to support me. I also post other content. I hope you can check it out. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Henley. Shout out to Dalton. Shout out to Josiah. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Monique. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Ethan. Shout out to Elijah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Julian. Shout out to Axel. Shout out to Declan. Shout out to Rajwan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Michael. Shout out to Lycan. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Leave a like if you're enjoying the shout outs. We're almost at 300 likes. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Cooper. Shout out to Rihanna. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Patty. Shout out to Angelina. Shout out to Jacob. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to Sully. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to Bree or Bry. Shout out to Mateo. Shout out to Taylor. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Matt. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 300 likes, only 25 more likes. Shout out to Tyra. Shout out to Mona. Shout out to Ariel. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Spencer. Shout out to Eden Rose. Shout out to Heart. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Hayden. Shout out to Madeline. Or Madeline. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Susan. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Caseo. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Luis. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 300 likes. Shout out to Briella. Shout out to Febin. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Chastity. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Johnny. Shout out to Erica. Shout out to Limber. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Diego. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Jason. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Lucy. Shout out to Alan. Shout out to Costina. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Trenton. Shout out to Jocelyn. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Nora. Oh, I already put Nora. Shout out to Tanya. Shout out to Rachel. Shout out to Garfield. Shout out to Billie Jean. Shout out to Lumi. Shout out to Kimber. Shout out to Isabella. Leave a like. We're almost at 300 likes. Only 10 more likes. Shout out to Arvin. Shout out to Peyton. Shout out to Alfredo. Shout out to Deleza. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Rufio. Shout out to Brace. Shout out to Oakley. Shout out to Ivana. Shout out to Blair. Shout out to Chevy. Shout out to Bryn. We're almost at 300 likes, only 4 more. Shout out to Cash. Shout out to Gigi. Shout out to Maddie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Casper. Shout out to Fiona. Shout out to Lariah. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mimi. Shout out to Posey. Shout out to Vanya. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Sakib. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. We're 2 likes away from 300 likes. I hope you like this shout outs. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Manail. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Shyla. Thank you for 300 likes. Shout out to Antonella. Shout out to Gursifat. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kiki. Shout out to Sahil. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Shout out to Timmy. Shout out to Leo. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Samari. Shout out to Juliana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jackson. Shout out to Louis or Luis. Shout out to Arizona. Shout out to Gunner. Whoops, I messed up. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Gavin. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to write your name. I truly appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I will live stream again. I'm not sure if today or if not, for sure tomorrow. So please subscribe. Please support my channel. Check out my other content that I post. I hope you can like my other content as well. Thank you so much for being here. Take care. I will see you next time. Bye.